If you're like me, you probably just logged on to Brawl one day and saw this in your mailbox. And after reading through it all, I was left with one question. Are the soon-to-be former Chromatics being placed into the right rarities? So without really knowing where they're actually going, I decided to make my picks on what rarity I think they should become. Like always, we're going to begin with Gale. And almost immediately, I decided that he deserves to be epic because his functionality is not too unique. He does have a somewhat interesting spread of his regular attack, and his super is just a big pushy move, and it doesn't really add anything too unique to the game, and I feel like he's just perfectly suited to be an epic. Next up we have Surge, and I think I'm placing him as a mythic. I feel as though making him a legendary is a bit too much of an overkill, because the most unique thing about him is the upgrade system that he has with his supers, and honestly, it's just hard to picture him as a legendary. Colette very easily gets epic. She does have a unique way of dealing damage, but aside from that, she doesn't really seem to have anything that makes her considerable for mythic or anything higher. Honestly, if it was an option, I might even give her super rare. Now hear me out on this, if I had any say, I would give Lou legendary. I feel like he's so one of a kind in so many ways because no one's able to disrupt the maneuverability of enemies in the way that Lou can, and then he also has his freeze meter, which is also super unique. So with all things considered, you're looking at a very well constructed brawler that is certainly very fit to be a legendary. Next up we have Ruffs, and I think that he is well suited as a mythic. It's certainly super unique that he has his ability to buff his teammates in a way that nobody else can do, but when you look at his other features such as the layout of his attack and his super, it's pretty basic and straightforward, and honestly, as much as I love my boy Ruffs, he just does not deserve to be a legendary. But still, mythic is just perfect for him. Next up we have Belle, and I honestly think she would be perfect as a legendary. If you were to ask me, her mark attack is one of the most one-of-a-kind things that have ever existed, and then her regular attack is also super unique because you can still get takedowns with Belle's shot long after the initial impact. The shot used to bounce around forever, but even now while it doesn't, I still think she just has the perfect build to be a legendary. Next we have Buzz, and I think he would be just fine as a mythic. His super is fine and he is a great assassin, and I would like to just picture his approach and say that he's a little too complex to be an epic, but just perfect to be a mythic. Up next we have Ash, and I think he is just fine as an epic. He's super tanky and he has a unique attack, and his most unique feature is his rage bar, but I feel like it doesn't set him to stand out enough to be anywhere higher than an epic because I feel like it could be almost any day that that trait could be applied to someone else. Next up we have Lola, and she is just fine as an epic. She is simply a damage dealer and she has nothing too unique, so putting her anywhere above the epic rarity, that would be a joke. I also believe that Fang would be just fine as an epic. His most mythic feature is the fact that his default attack can break out into a smaller projectile, but that's just not enough to bring him up above the epic rarity. Oh, but yeah, according to Supercell, he's a mythic. Eve, I've got to give it to her. I think she would be great as a mythic. Her ability to absolutely swarm the enemies, it's interesting, and her overall build and the fact that she can literally hover over water makes her a pretty cool brawler, and I feel like that red background is just perfect for her. Janet has also got to be a mythic. She has an attack that kind of charges up like that of one of our epics, but she also can literally fly. And I mean, since she can literally, fly, I can't just give her epic. Sorry Otis mains, but if I could decide, Otis would just be an epic. Everything about him is mega basic, except for the one feature being the pretty cool silencing that his super has. But do I need to remind you what he was like upon release? Yeah, he's great and all, but he's also just epic. Okay, now this one might be a little bit controversial, but I think Sam should be a legendary. Hear me out. He starts with his super, he deals a lot more damage with his knuckle busters on, and when he releases them, it's pretty deadly. I don't know anyone else who has such good combo moves, but he literally gets a speed boost when he uses his super. I think all of these factors should have honestly built up to making him a legendary. It's a shame he was just an epic. Busters is most certainly arguable, but I actually landed on giving him epic. I see him as a decent tank with a very typical looking attack, and I mean honestly, his super is pretty interesting, but I still feel like it's something that an epic could probably have. In my opinion, Mandy would also have gotten epic. Her most mythic seeming feature is probably the fact that her attack can get really long range if she stands still. But other than that, her super can kind of be seen as a combination of two other supers, both coming from brawlers no higher than the epic rarity, and overall her build, she's just a sniper, and I feel like she could actually have been a pretty decent epic brawler. Next up we have RT, and I would like to say that he is just a perfect mythic. Being able to split into 2 forms and having that really unique mark feature all make him perfectly qualified to be a mythic. I feel like out of all the mythic landing brawlers, he was probably the closest to being a legendary, but I feel like he was just missing a tiny bit of legendarity, so I can't give him that yellow background. Maisie is just fine as an epic. Her attack it's interesting, it starts off slow, goes fast, you know. Her super, some people may call it a reverse Jackie. I mean, she's one heck of a brawler to use, but I feel like something would just not be right if she was anywhere above the epic rarity. Up next, we have Cordelius, and he's just perfect as a legendary. I mean, think of everything he offers. He has that gadget that's literally an Otis super. He has his own super that brings everyone into a whole new realm, and I just feel like he has one of the most one-of-a-kind builds out of any brawler that has ever existed, and he's perfect as a legendary. Oh, but Pearl, yeah, she can just stay as an epic. They were on fire giving some super cool, unique, interesting chromatics for so long, and then they just gave us Cookie Pam, and they were like, here's a chromatic, but no, Pearl can be an epic. And finally, we have Charlie, and quite frankly, I haven't really gotten to play her, but if I were to assume, she'd be a pretty good mythic. I mean, her cocoon ability is really fun because I can't wait to troll people with it, but I feel like once she's not a chromatic, I can't just give her a legendary, but she's also too interesting to be epic, and I feel like she would just be perfect as a mythic, because honestly, she just gives off some mythic vibes. Anyways, just remember, I'm not Supercell, so my opinions may sound very dumb. That's completely okay. Anyways, that really is all I have for now. Thank you so much for sticking to the end, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone.